Hello America, it's very good to be with you, and through the wonders of this marvelous electronics it's very good to see you. My name is Professor Mike Fosdal, and I'm speaking to you from a slightly crowded and ever so slightly noisy pub in London. I'm sorry about the noise, but at least it does tell you this is a real pub and a real functioning one. We're actually in a pub called the Latchmere, and the Latchmere sits in the heart of a part of London called Battersea. Now Battersea started life many years ago as a quiet, unassuming little village. At that point it was a long way from London. It was somewhere that looked into the distance and saw London but was not part of it. The 19th century changed all of that. 19th century London grew and grew and grew, and in fact went from a population of 1 million in 1800 to a population of over 6 million in 1900. In that great process, Battersea was gobbled up, and though it still retained some individuality, some identity, it ceased to be the little village it had been once before. This pub that I'm sitting in, and through the courtesy of this electronics which you're sitting in, is called the Latchmere. It dates in fact from 1878. It is an extremely nice pub, and it does illustrate how pubs are changing and surviving in this country. The pub is probably one of the better known features of British life. Anyone who has watched films, TV series, whatever, will have seen people in the pub. And I should make something clear to begin with. The pub is not like a bar. America has bars which are excellent places in many ways, but the pub is a different place. The pub is somewhere where people come to be part of a community, to socialize. They come in for a drink, but in a long lifetime of going into pubs, I cannot think of more than 1 or 2 occasions when I've actually seen somebody drunk in a pub. It's not somewhere where you come to get drunk, it's somewhere where you come to have a drink and to socialize. You can walk into a pub at 6 o'clock in the evening, order a pint of beer, still have that same pint 5 hours later. Nobody will have said to you, drink up, you must leave, you've got to drink more, whatever. So, the pub is a social place, and as such it is somewhere that tends to very much define its neighbourhoods. Now the Latchmere is an interesting one. It's a big pub, a lot of space in here. It's also a pub which has to cater for a very different type of person these days. Back in the 1870s, Battersea tended to be a working class, lower middle class area. That has rather changed. If I look around me at the people who are here now, I can see they are very different. They are middle and upper middle class now. It's a different type of person who is being catered for. Also, the sheer cost of living around here has changed. What would have been affordable housing for lower income groups up until fairly recently is now, like much London property, terrifying in its prices. For an example, there's an apartment for sale near here. It has 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a living room. It looks like a nice apartment, but its sale price is £870,000. There's a house not very far from here, very much built as a working class house. It's Victorian, so it's about 120 years old now. That house is now on sale at £1.25 million. These are not places that are really suitable for lower income groups. So, we have a different type of person, we have a different type of inhabitant in the area, but this pub, with some changes to it, goes on. Now, America, it is always a pleasure to speak with you, and I did think this evening, if I spoke to you as a sort of somebody writing a letter to you, that might be a nice way to do it. And then I thought, what does one put into a letter? A letter to an old friend who one has not seen for a very long time? A letter to somebody who wants to just tell about the ordinary bits of daily life? So, if you don't mind us being old friends, America, and if you don't mind us looking at some of the ordinary things in life, I'll tell you a little bit about London today and life here. One of the things, of course, is that we are now in the autumn. That thing that you, for some strange reason, called fall, but we still persist in calling autumn. And autumn is lovely. Autumn, certainly this autumn, is beautiful. It's being very gentle. It's not cold yet. Well, at least I don't think it's cold. It's a bit damp, but it's not horribly damp. It actually is rather a beautiful autumn. The leaves are changing colour. The trees are shedding their leaves. There are 1,000 shades of brown on what remains. If you look along the streets, you get this marvellous image of green and brown and lots of different shades. It really is looking quite astoundingly beautiful at the moment. Now, okay, within another week or so, that's probably going to change. The leaves will go completely, and we'll be into winter, or at least what we call winter. Those of you in America who have real winters will wonder why we are not getting ready to paddle our way through 20 feet of snow on the ground. Winter here will be, I hope, a rather different experience for us. But at the moment it's very much autumn, and it is a rather lovely autumn. It's a lovely autumn, even if the world is a little bit strange at the moment. As many of you may know, in this country, we voted a few months ago to leave the European Union. This strange, monstrous thing called Brexit. Now, having done that, we are, to be honest, a little bit uncertain where to go with it. And so we have Brexit, we have us leaving the European Union, we have strong feelings still on both sides for those who wanted to stay and those who wanted to go. But we aren't really any clearer as to what it means. What is it actually going to mean on a daily sense to people to leave the European Union? In some ways, this is a rather unfortunate thing, to throw ourselves over the edge, as it were, without knowing what we were landing on. But we are still rather walking in the fog over this. We're not even too sure about the process for leaving the European Union. There is a thing called Article 50, which is the mechanism by which we actually would formally say we are leaving. But when we implement that, when we start it, quite what it will involve is still a matter of great uncertainty. So just as everybody up until June the 24th, when we had the referendum, was talking about what's going to happen, we are still talking about what is going to happen with some considerable uncertainty. Now, America, I have to say, we have some uncertainty. You have just managed to jump into an unknown space as well. We have been fascinated, as has the rest of the world, by your election. And we are intrigued by the result of it. We look at it in terms of what will happen to America, but we also look at it in terms of what effect does this have on us. It's far, far too early to actually tell in any real serious way yet. But just viewed from our point of view, what does not just a Republican administration in Washington mean, But what does a Trump administration mean? And this is something that I think perhaps America, you need to bear in mind amongst the rather large number of other things you need to bear in mind at the moment. The world is looking to Washington, and the world is looking to the new administration to get an idea of what it's going to be like. Now, perhaps unfortunately from our point of view, the first British politician who has been to visit Mr. Trump since he became president-elect is a man called Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is the leader of a party, a political party called UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party, which for years was dedicated to getting Britain out of the European Union. His appearance alongside the President-elect of the United States probably does some injustice to the actual amount of support Nigel Farage has in this country. But it does add fuel to the flames of those who think that if you look at things globally at the moment, there is a whole range of things going on which are in some way interrelated, and all of which seem to be challenging the existing order. Nigel Farage is a controversial figure. He is not someone I would care to support, but he does represent certainly a wing of politics, though he is by no means, as Fox News so mistakenly called him, the leader of the opposition in this country. So we wait and see what is going to happen to you. We wish you very good luck. We could be a bit like John Cleese. John Cleese, the British film actor, comedian, who has apparently today published a letter on the internet rescinding the American Declaration of Independence and saying that we will take you back into the United Kingdom. If you see this online, read it. It is quite funny. I have to say it was also quite funny in the year 2000 when it first appeared online. It's not a new thing at all. He's adjusted it a bit. But there is a seriousness about it. We are very close to America. It's not just a matter of self-interest. Your good fortune is something that we hope for, and we have always benefited from ourselves. So, good luck with all that side of things, America. Now, there are some other things I would like to talk about, but I know that there might be, did I say that correctly? I know there might be, okay, that's just suitably mixed up, but I believe there are some questions, and I now turn to my charming producer to ask her if she has any to pass on.
I do, but you'll need to repeat them.
Right.
Okay. So, actually, Dan from Dayton, Ohio, did ask in an email to tell us, are there similarities between Britain leaving the European Union and the current political climate in the U.S.? You may have answered that, but is there anything further that you might want to?
Right, and this is from Dan. Hello, Dan, and hello, Dayton, Ohio. Dan, it's a very interesting point. The immediate temptation is to say, yes, you know, these are very similar things. They are similar in that they represent a turning against the establishment. They're similar in that they seem to be associated with sort of anti-foreign, anti-migrant views in our societies. And at that sort of level, one could say they are similar. I don't think they actually go as deeply as some people might suggest in this country. Also, I think in the United States, we have to remember in both cases, this has not been an assault upon our systems. In America, Mr. Trump has been elected. The Electoral College has done what it's meant to do. it has all worked. In this country, we voted to leave the European Union. We are a bit uncertain about some of the ways in which to do it, but there's no real way, I think, that we can talk about this as being a revolution in either country. So I would say there are similarities, but also I think we should not push those too far, and America's approach to its particular problems are ultimately rather different from our approach here. So I would say, I'm sorry, this sounds like I'm trying to get the best out of this question by not answering it, but I would say there are similarities, but we shouldn't push them too far in trying to define them.
And Sarah from Portland, Oregon, wanted to know how you think that the recent election will change the relationship between Britain and the US. Again, you've addressed this briefly.
Right. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Sarah from Portland, where I think you've been having some exciting times in the last couple of days from what I've seen on television. I suspect that our relationship is going to remain the same. Quite what that relationship is another matter. We have for years, as has America, talked about a special relationship between the UK and the United States, without actually defining what that special means. Now this really dates from at least the Second World War, arguably earlier, when we believed that we had to keep next to the United States all the time, as the US was our passport, if you like, to remaining a global power. That relationship doesn't always work politically, but I would challenge you to find any two countries which are actually so close together at so many different levels. And just one statistic I would offer you there. There are 500,000 Americans, 500,000 Americans living in this country. That's living here long term. It's the largest number of Americans anywhere outside the United States. I don't know all 500,000, but I have known and do know a lot of Americans here, and there is a way in which they can bridge being American and being British, which I think you don't find elsewhere. It's quite interesting that I know Americans who have lived here for 25, 30 years. They're still American in some ways, but they're British too, and I think it's indicative of just how significant the relationship is, that you can have that sort of thing going on. We will have plenty of ups and downs, but I think in so many ways, like that, defense, others, we're going to maintain our relationship for a long time to come. Do we have...
Nothing else political at the moment, actually.
Okay, right. Can I just, America, look at one or two other things? Things that actually, in some ways, bring us together, Britain and America, but in others keep us quite separate. One of those is that very soon you have Thanksgiving coming up. Now, Thanksgiving is a wonderful celebration. Because I work and have worked with Americans for many, many years now, I'm sure I've eaten more Thanksgiving dinners than most people in this country. It is obviously something that means an awful lot to Americans, but I have to tell you, America, it means virtually nothing here, and indeed anywhere else. Thanksgiving is an absolutely American event, an absolutely American celebration. It's great fun. It obviously does mean a lot because one sees people going back to families, and one sees everybody who is American doing something for Thanksgiving. But it is quite intriguing that here it has no meaning at all. We have no parallel to it. We don't even pretend to celebrate Thanksgiving. What we do or have done for the last few years is to celebrate Black Friday. This, again, up until a few years ago, meant nothing. Then about 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of retail outlets in this country suddenly said, wow, it's Black Friday, people come and spend your money. With no justification. We had not had the Thanksgiving to have the Black Friday afterwards. Anyway, this has gone on for about the last 4 or 5 years, and in fact has not worked terribly well. There have not been a spike in sales on Black Friday. I personally think it's because we're so used to having our Christmas retail extravaganza very shortly afterwards that people just haven't budgeted it in at all.
I have a question from Deborah in Milwaukee about that.
Yeah.
The holiday season begins at Thanksgiving in the United States. When does the holiday season start in England?
Okay, Deborah, hello. This is a very interesting point, and on this occasion I'm just going to invoke my age for a moment. I remember when the Christmas holiday started on Christmas Eve, and when people went back to work on the 27th, and that was it essentially. Now, what has happened, and this has happened probably for the last 10 or 15 years, the whole thing has expanded. So Christmas will start, and I'm not quite sure what day of the week is going to be, but Christmas will start remarkably early. The last week before Christmas will be filled with people doing Christmassy non-work things. If they're still at work on Christmas Eve, they will finish at lunchtime, but I can guarantee you not much work will be done then. The week between Christmas and New Year, nothing will happen. Nobody will work. Everything will be quiet. London will be a most peculiar place. It will be empty. There will be nobody around. It will be quiet. It will be dark. Nothing going on. New Year will come, and after New Year's Day, the 2nd of January will be the first day back at work. So we've expanded into this rather prolonged Christmas period, which does go on much longer than it used to do. And we also have this peculiar thing which we call Boxing Day. This is on the 26th of December, and nobody actually knows why it's called Boxing Day. You will find plenty of suggestions. One is that was when you gave the servants their box of presents. Another would be that was when you cleared away the boxes. Whatever the reason, Boxing Day has always been a holiday as well. But the whole thing has now expanded to become something much, much longer than it used to be. And every year we mutter about how Christmas goes on for too long, but it doesn't seem to get any shorter at all.
I have another holiday-related question.
Yeah.
I don't know if people can hear me. In my house, this is from Robert in Bagley, Michigan.
Right.
In my house, we eat turkey for every major holiday. What is the main dish in the UK?
Okay, thank you. Hello, Robert. I was asked a question about what we eat as our main dish, given that turkey is the one in America. I have to say here, turkeys have no better time of it. Turkeys are the main thing. Okay, on Thanksgiving, our turkeys get away with everything. They don't get gobbled up on that occasion. But the main meat, the one that everyone always associates with Christmas, is turkey. There have been other ones. In the 19th century, goose was very popular. And there are some people who will still have goose. Others may have roast beef or something like that. But I think the creature that is absolutely associated with Christmas eating is the turkey. And there must be a few turkeys starting to get worried now if they've been looking at the newspapers at all.
I have a joint question. Now, they can't hear me,
Okay.
so you'll have to repeat. Two people asked about snow in London. Is there snow in London? And growing up, did it snow for you like it does in the movies? That's Karen in Minneapolis and Mary in Wadena.
Right. Karen, Mary, hello there. It's good to speak to you. The question that you posed is about snow. I can tell you at the moment there is not a hint of snow anywhere in London, though there is snow in Scotland. And it has, I believe, crept down into the higher parts of northern England. We do not have the same relationship with snow that you do. Our snow tends to be quite sporadic. For the last few years, we've not had any snow here in London or around. I live in a village just outside Oxford, at the top of a hill. To get to the station, I have to go up and down the hill. The one thing I dread is a snowy winter, but it must be now 5 years since that has happened, and so snow is not something that comes regularly or necessarily in great amounts. We can get a lot of snow. 5 years ago, in December, before Christmas, we suddenly were covered with snow. I had 18 inches in my back garden. I went out with a ruler to measure it. But that was very, very rare. If we get snow, it tends to be, in London, it tends to be at the beginning of the year, January, February time. But as I say, in recent times we have gone without snow altogether. However, I am old enough to remember the great winter of 1962-63, when it started snowing on Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, and it did not stop snowing and freezing until late March. That brought the country to a halt. It stopped trains, it stopped vehicles. It was a really, really long, dramatic time. But that is something that does not happen very often. Prior to that, the biggest winter had been in 1947. So we get these occasionally happening, but at the moment, here we have no snow at all. Scotland, as I say, they've got it. North of England, they've got it, or they've had it recently. No, we can only look across the sea to Wisconsin to see what real snow actually looks like. And good luck with that. I don't think we could cope with that at all.
I have one more question, and again, you'll need to repeat it. Does everyone drink beer in England?
Okay. The question, very relevant given as to where we are. Does everyone drink beer in England? Well, yes and no. Lots of people drink beer, but it is interesting. Fewer and significantly fewer people drink beer now than used to be the case. Beer used to be the standard drink for everybody, every male certainly, and there were others forms of beer that women might drink, that they would tend to drink something other than beer. But for men, it was beer. Beer has been on decline for some time. We've seen a rise in wine. We have seen a rise in different types of beer, so lager type beers, light beers have increased. The traditional English pinter is still there, and it seems to have a fairly steady sort of customer base, but definitely it is much, much less than it used to be. One of the things that always used to horrify Americans was the fact that we had our beer warm, and they could not understand this at all. It did take something of getting used to, I agree. But the good thing perhaps is that even though beer has declined, it's still there, and it is available in a much wider range of forms than used to be the case. So I have to say that Miriam, our producer, and I are both sitting here with our glasses of beer at the moment, so we are maintaining tradition as best able.
I think that's it. Unless you want to talk about COVID all again.
Okay. Just say a couple of things, if I may, America. First of all, the pub is a great institution. If you come to this country, make sure that you come to the pub and enjoy yourself. They are naturally friendly places. Hopefully you can see now an image of the place and the people in it. So pubs are good, they're friendly places, and they are very nice indeed. America also, I'd like to say, one of the things that I've always liked about Americans is the fact that you are just so darned friendly. If you come into a pub, you can be friendly. Sometimes people find British people standoffish. Come into a pub, they're much more naturally friendly. America, we can never be quite as friendly as you. I have a very fond memory of being in Chicago and trying to find Union Station and not being able to at all, and eventually asking, I'm sure she would forgive me for saying it, a not young lady of colour, how to get to Union Station. She looked to the left, she looked to the right, she took me by the arm and said, and I can't do the accent, well honey, I don't know, but let's go and find out together. America, I wish you all a very, very happy Christmas, very, very happy New Year. I wish that to you all together. I wish that to Miriam, and I wish that to everybody. So take care, look forward to seeing you again soon. God bless you all, and look after yourselves.
The last question came in.
I'm still here. I'm still here. Yeah.
Why do they choose warm beer?
Sheer utter contrariness. I will confess, when I was a young man and was being introduced to beer, it took an awful lot to get used to, and I think it was the warmth that really I didn't like. But just as America, you've always tended to make all your drinks cold. You even put ice into your sherry. Here we've tended to go for the warmth. I think there are other reasons. One would be beer was drunk for a long, long time as a substitute for water because the water supplies were contaminated. So beer was a cheap alternative to that. And just on that, the village where I live in Oxfordshire, if you go back 100 years, or just over 100 years, it had a population of about 900. It had 35 pubs there. And everybody had the excuse that it was safer to drink the beer than it was to drink anything else. But I think that was partly it, perhaps. They had no means of making their beer cold or cool, so it just came up being warm all the time. I shall now try some slightly not warm beer and see how that tastes. Take care, America.